Thomas and William were brothers in everything but blood, their bond forged in hardship long before they ever set foot in the academy. But Thomas carried a heavy secret, a ghost from his past. His parents' deaths had left him with a power that wasn't just strong, it was unstable. When his emotions ran high or he pushed his body too far, his strength didn't just increase, it exploded, shattering the world around him and threatening to twist his very form. He lived in constant fear of this loss of control, training himself to be a stone, burying every spike of anger and pain just to keep his power looking human. At the academy, this was a difficult act to maintain. He watched others flourish. Owen could bend blood, Dylan manipulated space, and Matt phased through reality. Amar shifted his size, Henry vanished without a trace, and Mason calculated every possible outcome. Thomas kept his own abilities locked down while William thrived in the open. But during a training evaluation, a moment of carelessness sent a web of cracks through the solid stone floor. It was a minimal effort, yet the result was devastating. He overheard the teachers whispering. They called his power reactive. They said if he was ever pushed too far, emotionally or physically, his body would transform into something monstrous, a Hulk-like mutation. That is, when it can one serious injury, one emotional breakdown, and he'd become a monster he couldn't control. As Thomas grew more withdrawn and erratic, the Academy's whispers turned to accusations. They thought he was turning to the dark side out of weakness. But Owen and Mason saw something else. They refused to believe it and went to William in secret. They had a way to track Thomas, not just where he went, but who he was meeting. Against his better judgment, William agreed. From a distance, they followed him, only to uncover a horrifying truth. Thomas wasn't acting alone. He was being cornered, manipulated by villains who spoke of his power with chilling excitement. They talked about how pain could evolve his abilities, how breaking him would unleash something unstoppable. Owen's blood ran cold. They weren't trying to recruit him. They were preparing him, grooming him into a living weapon. Consumed by the fear of what he was becoming, Thomas made a desperate choice. He left the academy and joined the villains, clinging to the false hope that they could teach him the control he so desperately craved. He believed it was the only way to protect the people he loved, especially William. But for William, it was the ultimate betrayal. When they finally met again, rage and grief exploded from him. He attacked, demanding answers Thomas couldn't give. Thomas tried to explain, tried to tell him about the transformation he was fighting to hold back, but William wouldn't listen. Forced to defend himself, Thomas held back, his movements careful. But one surge of emotional overload, one slip, and he struck too hard. William collapsed, unconscious. Horrified, Thomas stared at his friend, realizing how close he'd come to becoming the monster he feared. Later, the academy held a dance, a fragile attempt to restore normalcy. Tensions were still high. Thomas returned, a ghost in the crowd, ashamed and lost. William confronted him again, his fists replaced with words, demanding the truth. But before they could speak, the wall shattered. Villains swarmed in, and with them came a terrifying revelation. There was a mole in the academy. Someone had leaked everything's schedules, security, every movement. Panic erupted. Dylan threw up shields of debris. Owen restrained enemies with brutal precision. Matt evacuated the injured, and Amar guarded the escape routes. In the heart of the chaos, a villain named Nora struck Thomas across the eye. The impact was devastating. It was the exact kind of injury he had spent his life dreading, the trigger he had suppressed for years. Pain and emotion crashed over him in a tidal wave. For the first time, he couldn't hold it back. His muscles ripped and expanded. His bones shifted, and the ground cracked beneath him as his body transformed into something massive and inhuman. The mutation the teachers warned of was here. Even as the change consumed him, he managed to gasp an apology to William. "I never wanted this," he said. "I was just scared of hurting you." But William didn't run. He stepped closer to the monster his friend was becoming and said, "Then don't fight alone." Those words anchored him. The rage was there, but it didn't control him. He controlled it. Together, they fought, turning the tide of the battle. When it was over, Thomas collapsed, the transformation receding, and William was there to catch him. The truth was finally clear. Thomas's power wasn't evil. It was only dangerous when he tried to bear its weight all by himself. And in that moment, everything changed.